August 18th meeting of the Mobile City Planning Commission. I would like to take a moment to review our general operating procedures. Our meeting is divided into two sessions, the public hearing session and the deliberation session. In the public hearing session, an application or group application on the agenda is called. The applicant makes his or her presentation. Commission members ask questions, if any. Members of the public make their comments. Only 4 people may speak for an agenda item or project and 4 against. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes, subject to questions by the commission. After 4 minutes, a loud beep will indicate 1 minute left to speak, and at this point, please summarize your comments. After all opposition speakers have finished, the applicant will be given time to respond. If you do intend to speak, please come to the podium, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for our minutes. Please direct all comments to the commission only and not to the applicant or the audience. And please remember to speak directly into the microphone. On routine applications, the applicant may simply raise his or her hand if there are no objections to the staff recommendations. I will then announce that the applicant is in full agreement with those recommendations. If there are any questions, the applicant will be given an opportunity to respond. After hearing all applications, the commission will go into deliberation session. In the deliberation session, the commissioners discuss each application with input from the staff as necessary, but with no input from the audience. The commissioners then vote on each application, and the results of the voting can be learned from the planning department. If some issues arise in the deliberation session that were not addressed in the public hearing, the chairman has the discretion either to allow additional comments pertaining to those issues in order to resolve them, or call for the application to be held over for discussion at a future meeting. Occasionally, 1 or more commission members may recuse themselves from discussing and voting on a given application. A recusal does not necessarily mean the member is directly involved with the application or the applicant. Depending upon the circumstances, ethical rules may require a recusal when there is only the slightest appearance of a conflict of interest. If a regular member recuses, a supernumerary will vote in their stead, unless both supernumeraries are already voting due to absences. The Planning Commission makes final decisions subject to appeal on subdivisions, planning approvals, and plan unit developments, PUDs. The Planning Commission only makes recommendations on zoning applications, with the City Council making the final decisions. Please turn off your cell phones at this time. Roll call. Jay Watkins, not here. Carlos Gant here. Miss Jennifer Denson.
Here.
Mr. John Ballas.
Here.
Miss Bess Rich.
Here.
Mr. Don Hembry.
Here.
Mr. Nick Omberger.
Here.
Mr. Thomas Doyle.
Here.
Miss Shirley Sessions.
Here.
Mr. Alan Cameron.
Here.
Miss Libby Latham. Miss Keena Andrews.
Here.
And Mr. Doug Anderson.
I'm here. I don't get to vote, but I'm here.
First up will be our holdovers. Item number 1, zoning applications 206-1243, Richard Ball and Iona Ball. It is recommended for approval. Are the owners here?
Recommended for denial.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's recommended that it be denied. Sorry. Are the owners present? The applicant present? Moving on. To new subdivision applications, applicant 5109 Halls Mill Road, recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are they okay with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and have said that they're okay with staff recommendations. Are there anyone here to speak for this application? Are there anyone here to speak against this application? Thank you. Item number 3, Moore Sussex Place Estate subdivision. It's recommended for approval, subject to staff recommendations. Is the owner applicant here? Are you okay with staff recommendations? Is there anyone else here to speak for this application? Anyone to speak against this application? Just please come forward.
I'm probably jumping ahead, I don't know. I live right across the street from the lot that's going to be increased from 43 feet to 50 feet wide. I don't know the purpose of the change, and that may not have anything to do with the planning part. But I bought here 5 years ago, and they're all, even though it's R2 and R3 and the 3 subdivisions, I handed out a handout that's a black and white copy of the area.
Could you give your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Drew Heyer, and I live at 6053 Sussex, Mobile, Alabama.
Thank you.
They're all individual homes on individual lots. Even though it's zoned R2 and R3 in the neighborhood, there is no multifamily homes in these subdivisions. I know that's a separate issue when it goes to, for that. But if this is opening up and allowing for that to happen, and you're pinching down a lot to 30 feet, there's no 34 lots. How do I put this? Emotional because it's across the street from me. The subdivision south of us is about 20-some lots. When we came here 5 years ago, there was 5 lots in there that were not built on. In the 5 years, those have been built on with individual homes with the same kind of building, same size. They've filled in. I believe these lots will fill in as individual homes with small side yards. Whatever is taking place here to pinch that down to 30 feet means it has to be a townhouse, a duplex, or something. So this is going away from what the re-subdivision was for that end of those 14 lots. There is townhomes on the eastern end, but they're, I don't know, 15, 20 years old. They're not recent, and they re-subdivided the west end for individual, what looks to me like for individual homes, and that's all there is on there. 2-story brick individual homes with small side yards. This, to me, looks like it's going to change my neighborhood. I don't know what it's for. I know this is just a lot size change, but it looks like it's setting the base for doing something other than building a fairly narrow two-story home in there. I don't know what else I can say other than that. I could just go on, but it's just all emotions after that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Real quick, Steph, do we know for sure, is he proposing a duplex, or is he just proposing to create one larger legal lot?
Since it's a subdivision, we generally don't ask that question, but the applicant's here. But from the appearance, it is just increasing the size, and as the staff report indicates, several years ago, there was a re-subdivision of 3 lots into 2. So this is not the first time lot sizes have been increased in Sussex Place.
Maybe the applicant can shed some light for us.
But in the increasing of the one, you've made the other one the smallest lot in this re-subdivided end of 14 lots, and it is now the size of the townhouse lots. So you have made it almost impossible for this to be what this end of the subdivision is. So for me, as not on the legal side of it, saying this was re-subdivided for individual houses, and I don't know why we're going back to an old way that was on the other end to make it into duplexes or townhomes. Yes, it was that way before, but I'm going to be kind of a smart aleck. It probably was agricultural land at one time, and I could say, let's go back to agricultural land, and I want to put a pig farm across there, and I hope you guys would say no, because going back to a previous way does not mean it's good for the community or our neighborhood.
Mr. Meyer, I think as what we're faced with is compatibility is usually used in evaluating a subdivision. So if there are, there's kind of a mixture in there, and you're saying what's compatible on just essentially the west 200 or 300 feet, makes it not compatible with the entire subdivision. I mean, we've reached outside that before and maybe looked to other subdivisions in the area, but to me it'd be difficult, maybe
There's-
the applicant can tell us,
There's no multiple, even though it's R2, in all of these 3 subdivisions, when you look at that map, and if you can see the houses on there, they're all individual homes on individual lots. There is nobody took use of the R2 zoning. Everybody has made this maybe a 0 lot line on one side or 0 lot line on both sides, like a townhouse. But nobody has made this multiple units on a single lot in the 3 subdivisions around this.
Could we get the applicant to come up and maybe shed some light on what the plans are?
My name's Fred Height with Height Land Surveying. Lot B is gonna be I guess you call it a duplex, but it's gonna be close to 3,400 square feet. 2-story bricks, similar to all the other houses in the neighborhood. And it is zoned R2. We have 2 5-plexes at the beginning and a 4-plex. The lots are 25 feet wide, but there's 5 lots each. And then, so we're not out of character for the neighborhood, and they're gonna be nice structures. And Lot A is gonna be a single dwelling, and that's gonna be close to 2,200 square feet, which is about the average for that neighborhood, square footage. So he's not trying to build anything smaller or anything of less value than the adjacent property owners.
remind me again, the width of lot A is how much?
I think A is 30 feet. Yeah, 30, 28, just a hair over 30 feet. But with the 0 lot lines, that gives us plenty of room to build a 25 by 44, 2-story house.
And do you know if there are any other 30-foot wide lots in there?
There's some 25s at the beginning of the original layout of Sussex Place. And they had the duplexes, or the 5-plexes on them. So there was some smaller lots to begin with. But all these have, at this end, the west end, have been re-subdivided over the years.
There's a
I think there's-
5-plex on a 25-foot lot?
Well, no, there's 5 25-foot lots, there's 2 5-plexes and a 4-plex on multiple lots
Just at the front.
at the front, yeah, as you come in. I guess that's how they intended to build it originally, and just never finished the whole unit.
Any more questions by commission members?
Well, I have a question, if that's okay. And we received correspondence from somebody and maybe this is for staff, perhaps, at 6068 Sussex Drive, that says that they did not receive any notice about this. And certainly they would be trying to, they're the last house.
This is a subdivision,
So
so
it's just, they have to touch it?
adjacent and directly across the street.
Okay, that explains that.
Any other questions? Anyone else here to speak against? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4, 5487 and 5509 Gibson Road. It's recommended for tentative approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? They have made notice that they're in agreement. Is there anyone here to speak for this? And is there anyone here to speak against this application? Thank you. Moving now to new plan unit development applications. Item number 5, 1485 Satchel Page Drive. This is recommended for approval, subject to staff recommendations. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak for this? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you.
I have a question on it, if that's all right. I guess it's probably for the applicant. I was just curious, I noticed that in the staff report, it does state that there is,
Can you use your microphone, please?
yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, is that any better?
Pull it to you.
Are you sure? Just had a question about the parking overages that were stated in the staff report. And I guess I was just curious if there was any flexibility in the number of parking spaces that are on this particular site. Because I believe the requirement, according to the staff report, the city's requirement was 73 spaces, and there are 105. I know there's adjacent parking there too, but I understand also that there are additional, I guess, buildings or things that will be located in that vicinity as well. But I guess I was just curious if there was any opportunity to decrease the amount of parking at all on that site.
It's a 105-room hotel, correct? Or 105 parking spaces?
Yes, the staff report, 105 are required for this number of rooms. It's 0.7 parking spaces per room.
73
Hmm?
73 required.
Right, there's 73 required, they're proposing 105. So there's 32 parking spaces above the minimum requirement.
Right, and I guess my question is more for the applicant. I'm just curious as to whether there is any flexibility in reducing that excess in parking spaces.
That's the applicant.
Could you come up to the mic, please?
I'm Jeff Wilkerson, live at 1832 Seacrest Drive in Goshen, Mississippi. I heard you talking about the 0.7 parking spaces required.
Is there any flexibility on the number of parking spaces in the site plan?
We have to go back with the Hilton design. Hilton requires us to provide the extra spaces for the guests. And
Okay.
there's so many additional spaces for staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Moving on. Item number 6, 1753 Spring Hill Avenue. This is recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Mr. Vallis is recusing. Are you okay with staff recommendations? Okay. Applicant's present, they're okay with the staff recommendations. Is there anyone here to speak for this? Okay.
Hello, I'm Hudson Sandifer, 28341 Beauchene Court in Daphne. And I'm not sure that the commissioners got the opportunity to read the narrative before today, so I just want to take a second and just explain we're bringing this back, so I thought I'd explain what we're doing. Basically, the first plan that we brought before the commission had a total of 45 parking spaces. After the meeting, we had to go back to the property owner. We had to renegotiate we changed the boundaries, we changed some of the configuration. We put all the parking on our site instead of using cross-access parking, and we actually reduced the parking. This plan has 5 less parking spaces, so we have a total of 40, which 45 is the minimum that I have at any of my other restaurants, and it's the baseline of what we need, but 40 is as low as we could go, basically. So this is us bringing it back with fewer spaces in an attempt to make it work for us and for the city.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, just a quick
sir.
question. So, the previous application, if staff could remind me, I believe we approved this with the removal of the parking spaces along Spring Hill Avenue.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know that our issue was with the count, it was with the location of those particular, and I think Ms. Andrews spoke to that and maybe could enlighten us with the intent, but that was my recollection. It's about those 6 spaces along Spring Hill Avenue as opposed to a total number.
You are correct that those 6 were the ones that were removed the last time. The reason we came back with the same plan for that area is because we have to have a certain number of spaces. We made the site as large as we could to accommodate the parking, so that's number 1. Number 2, if you notice, the parking that was talked about being removed for the operation of our business, those are our prime parking spaces. Our front doors are closer to that area, so that would basically, if we were to say just push them to the back, that would mean that the premier parking would be farther away from our front doors. Let me do point this out. The parking that we have designed here, the concrete, the curbing, the asphalt, does not encroach on those trees or that area any more than what's currently there now with the credit union. And actually, we are creating 500 square feet more landscaping space in that area. We're actually removing, so there'll be less curb, less asphalt, more landscaping.
How many parking spaces are provided under the current?
40.
40?
40
And
total.
you're needing a minimum of 45?
Well, 45 is what we want to get.
Right.
But we obviously don't have it here. We're getting less than what we would like to have, but 40 is, we can still make our business work with 40. If it were, I'll be honest with you, if it's gonna be less than 40, it's not gonna work for us.
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On a previous PUD that we had that was also located on a traditional corridor, they had parking spaces located up toward the road. But one thing that they were willing to do was to install permeable pavers to kind of just soften the aesthetic, and also kind of, provide that additional permeable surface. Would that be something that is feasible in this instance?
I'd have to talk to my engineer to just see, and there's also the, going through, this is a franchise, so things that we're changing the overall look of what is typical, I would have to get their approval to do something like that. So I can't answer that, I can certainly do it.
Okay.
It's something I've not done before. I'll say that we, in addition to the 500 additional square feet of landscaping, we're obviously adding trees per the requirements. We're increasing the beauty of that whole area, adding a lot of nice landscaping. We're also closing, if you remember, there is a side entrance off of Mobile Infirmary that you currently use. We're closing that, and that's now gonna be landscaping. So that's also gonna be less concrete and asphalt that's gonna be at the side.
Okay, one more question. Just to, I guess in regards to how a pedestrian would say, access the business from the sidewalk. I didn't see any specific connections from a sidewalk to any kind of crosswalk to get to the building. Is there a way, as this site plan exists, to connect to the sidewalk at all? Or if not, would that be something possible?
I don't see it specifically, but it would not be a problem to add it.
So, you would be able to add some kind of pedestrian connection to the sidewalk?
Yes. And again, I'm not an engineer, so I can't just look at it and say, well, it would go best here or there, but I do have an engineer that can certainly make that happen.
Okay.
I have
Thank
a
you.
question. What do you plan to do in the grassy area, if anything, in the future, or will this stay a grassy area?
There is a landscaping plan that I believe y'all should, I'm hoping y'all have that. And with the grassy area, you're talking about on Spring Hill?
Yeah. I'm looking at it as,
There's just a site plan that, like this right here is just a site plan. But
Right.
there's an
Where it
actual
says
landscaping
grass?
plan. It's not all grass. There's trees, there's shrubbery, there's flowers.
so it's just gonna remain a green space, it's not.
That's
under
correct,
future
yeah. There's no
development and-
like picnic benches or any structures at all. It's all landscaping.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to, one clarification to the original specific question, which was, why are we bringing it back? The last time we brought it, we didn't have an opportunity to address it because the question didn't come up until after this session.
Any other questions?
Just one more time, just clarify. I mean, currently, this application is requesting 40 parking spaces, right?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question of staff. The parking, what would be our city's code requirement? Is that similar to?
37.
I read 37 to make code, correct? So they're getting 3. Thank you.
I have a question for staff too, just real quick. Since the applicant stated that the idea of using permeable pavers would depend on checking with the franchise, could that in any way be incorporated into a motion? Okay.
It could be a condition if his drainage plan, I mean, he said he'd have to check with his engineer. Well, I'm assuming because it'd be some stormwater impact. So,
Sure.
yeah, you could make it a condition that if engineer approval and franchisor approval is obtained, then it would be required.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone
We'll
else?
make it a condition of approval unless they do not consent. The engineer and the franchisor, that'd probably be a better way to word it.
And then just to clarify, I assume you're just talking about these 6 spaces?
Yes.
Okay.
And could staff remind me what the screening requirements are on that edge for the parking? Is it a landscape edge, or does it have to be 3 feet?
No, sir.
Just nothing that's can be wide open?
Are there any other questions? Anyone else here to speak for this applicant?
Thank you.
Anyone here to speak against? Thank you. Item number 7, 1301 Cochran Causeway.
Let me inform the council, the commission, that earlier this week I received a handwritten letter from the attorney for the applicant stating that based on what they claim are arbitrary and illegal conditions placed in the staff report, they are withdrawing this application and will seek their legal remedies. So they have withdrawn this application, but I will go on record to state that the staff, as well as I, have bent over backwards to provide this applicant with information for the last couple of months. Sorry they weren't satisfied with our information, and we'll just see what the future brings in regards to this application.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask about that particular application? This is really the first time since we came up with our brand-new code. Do you know what they're objecting to?
I'd rather not go into it here. I'd be glad to talk to you afterwards, but
Okay.
it certainly has to do with the interpretation of the new ordinance and information provided by the staff, or lack of information provided by the staff. But I'll be glad to talk to
I
you
would really
about
be
it
curious,
afterwards.
only because, we worked so hard to come up with that new ordinance about expansion, and I didn't know whether a PUD had to come
That's
forward.
that's the issue.
And that's what's before you
Right.
now,
Yeah,
not a planning approval.
not a planning, but, yeah. Okay, I'll talk
What
to you.
approvals are needed are the issue,
But, yeah,
issues.
so the recommendation to October is off, that's no longer
This application's withdrawn.
withdrawn. Okay, thank you.
New vacation request, item number 8, Premier Capital Funding. This is recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with the staff comments? Anyone here to speak for this? Anyone to speak against? Thank you. New group applications, item 9, 414 and 430 Schillinger Road North. Subdivision and zoning application. This is recommended for holdover, and it's probably will be granted. However, if anyone here wishes to speak for it or against it.
I'm Fred Height with Height Land Surveying, and we're in agreement with the holdover.
Okay.
And the engineer's working on updating the site plan,
Okay, thank you.
and we'll have it in by the 29th.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone here to speak against this? It will probably be held over, and you can have an opportunity to speak at that time. Item number 10, 7261 and 7311 Airport Boulevard, the Molinex Ford subdivision is recommended for tentative approval. As well as the PUD. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Applicant is present and is in agreement. Is there anyone here to speak for this application? Is there anyone here to speak against this application?
We're holding a letter from a resident that lives in that neighborhood right behind the applicant's project, and the only thing is, there's a misunderstanding because they called it a rezoning, and does staff get back with the disposition, and could there be some information that was given to this person who, because they used the word rezoning at the top. Do you see their letter? Elisa Watkins received it. I just want to make sure that people understand what the application was about. See where they call, at the top,
The
their
one from Norris
subject.
Lawrence, the email from Norris Lawrence?
Yes, yes.
Ms. Rich, I'm not sure if the staff member or planner communicated with them.
I know
will-
they accepted is what I'm saying. I don't know what your protocol is when somebody writes. They're not a resident of the city of Mobile, ironically. That was not incorporated in.
Well, and normally, if it's a letter of opposition, we do not respond. We provide the letter to you because, in essence, that's who the letter is to, or the email is to, the planning commission.
I mean, I understand because I receive phone calls about noise from businesses there, but there's very little that can be done. They're not in the city limits. It's kind of a catch-22 for the residents. It doesn't really, it might show on the site map where Portside comes in.
The zoning confusion might have come from the fact that the PUD has a zoning case number, because the PUD
That's the
comes
way
under the
they
zoning ordinance,
understand
not
it.
subreg. So it has a zoning and a sub, two different case numbers, one under each. So they probably assumed it was rezoning because of that case number.
And Ms. Rich, if I may follow up on that, that's under our current software. We are hopeful that the new software will have different case numbers for each type of the application, as opposed to whether it's a zoning ordinance application or a subdivision regulation application.
And I don't know if the representative who is down here from this particular application can talk about the noise or any kind of buffering as far as internal buffering inside. I know it's a car dealership, so horns are gonna be beeping. But is there anything as far as on the project that the staff looks at when you're bumping up against residential? As far as a way to place it?
And just to be clear, I think this application, nothing's changing on the south property line or the west property line along Portside. It's just the proposed building, which is actually fronting airport. Is that correct, Ray?
Yes, sir.
So they're doing basically a new showroom?
The main thing is the building along Airport. They're closing some curb cuts for better traffic circulation. Yeah, and some parking islands, but as far as, like, as Mr. Vallis said, there's nothing along or near the rear that's occurring. It's an existing business. I don't know that there's anything that can be done.
Okay.
If you read the letter, it sounds like that the Norris Lawrence may be thinking that a buffer to the south of the property is being removed. It kind of reads that way, and that's not the case.
Yeah. And if you look at the aerial, there's a fairly significant green space to the south that's not being impacted as a part of this application.
I see an email from that gentleman, so I'll reach out to them on whatever this board decides to do. Thank you.
Moving to item number 11, Leeton Place subdivision, Phase 2. It is recommended for holdover till September 15th. Is the applicant present? Are you okay with that? Right. Is there anyone here to speak for this? Is there anyone here to speak against? You'll have that opportunity at the next meeting, at the September 15th meeting.
Yeah, that's a quick question before we move on to this one. I'm sure we'll hold it over, but I just wanted clarification. Something might need to be addressed prior to the next meeting, and that's the fire code compliance. We've got 31 lots on the new subdivision. I think 32 is the threshold, is that right? 30?
30.
We've got 31 with one access. And we've also got an additional 10 or 11 lots on that same access road. So I was just curious to how that would play out with fire code. Better to deal with it now than to wait another 4 weeks.
As presented, it doesn't meet the fire code requirements.
So your question would be if a second point of access is going to be necessary for the cul-de-sac portion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's some kind of remedy has got to be come up with to meet the fire code, to have that many lots. Just pointing that out.
So what's the okay, the total number that's being proposed is 31, and it attaches to how many additional?
think
Is that
there's-
what you're looking at?
I think there's 10 additional.
So that's 41. I know that the fire department has their, about getting egress and ingress and all that good stuff. The police department will tell you all their surveys say one in-way out is safer. It's just a matter of what they're saying keeps you safe.
I'd rather have a fire truck be able to get to my house or an emergency vehicle.
Well, this is 41, and is it 40 or
30.
30.
30 is the cutoff?
I'm not saying that I'm in agreement with the fire code, I'm just saying that's what it is, and that's a state deal from my understanding, so it's just something we gotta deal with.
You could ask for a lot that has a security gate, future security gate, since you've got some empty land that possibly be developed in the future, and that could be,
Yeah, this step we don't require stub outs on a subdivision like this.
Was this a private road? No. Yes, there should have been a stub out, but that still would not address the point of 2 points of access. This part, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, this part is private road. The original part is public road. So,
so the residents will have to maintain that end of the road?
yes, ma'am.
No city services as far as garbage. Of course, they would get police and fire.
They bring the garbage cans out to the gate, but they otherwise,
Our private trash.
Yeah, private.
Any other comments? Item 12, 1204 Hillcrest Road. It's recommended for approval. Is the applicant present? Are you in agreement with staff recommendations? Is there anyone here to speak for this application? Anyone here to speak against? Thank you.
Okay, I just have something I wanted to bring to everyone's attention on this one. This took a lot of roundtable discussion, which is good. It's Hillcrest Baptist Church that moved into being Volunteers of America, and it backs up to a subdivision. And I just would like to hear from the staff on this. The 6-foot fence is already there that the residents have, and they didn't want to have to come in and see any tree clearing, because one of the best things about this development, if we could look at the aerial, is that possible? You see all that buffer, and the way that let me get it for you, but you said something about retaining, like, how did you, is that something that the staff will be able to make sure happens, to keep as much as that tree line? Because really, 10 foot is all that's required.
If, they should have to obtain a permit to do any type of clearing or clearing and grubbing
Okay.
back there, correct, George?
if that's all they want to do, yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, city staff would know about it and we would have a plan and be able to
I mean,
verify.
that was what all the residents bought in, because when they laid out their development plan, they said, we're not touching the tree line. And then that's why everyone's good with it. And I watched all those meetings take place. being their representative. So that, I just wanna make sure that I understand, so that would be something very important. And I know it's important to the applicant because of what they heard from the residents. They wanna be really good neighbors. So I just wanted to make sure that the language of that was something that, it says, wait, where is the one? Let me see. Let me find it. Is it under, how did you word that? Help me with this here. You
Well,
said,
there's two
placement
different-
of stating that tree removal shall be limited to the project area. So what do you all consider the project? Is that their comfort level?
Immediately surrounding what is being
Okay.
proposed.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's very good.
That closes the public deliberation section. Then we go to the, our deliberation now is open. Starting back with application number 1, it's recommended to be denied. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny.
Second?
Properly moved and seconded. Are we ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? Denied. Item number 2, 5109 Halls Mill Road, recommended for approval. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Item number 3, Moore Sussex Place Estate Subdivision. Is there a motion?
Discussion, if we could, first.
Okay.
Clarification, how many duplexes are there currently in this subdivision regardless of age? Do we know?
I don't think there are any that are on an individual lot.
Right.
The majority of the subdivision, each unit, while it may be a 4 or 5-plex type building, each unit has its own lot. I'm not aware of any duplexes on a single lot.
So really, the physical characteristic is not going to change, because you're not going to look at, I mean, you're going to see a duplex, but then just to the east, you're going to see 4 or 5 structures connected. So whether they're on a individually platted lot, the physical characteristics of the subdivision aren't really going to change. Am I?
I was just answering the question as asked.
I know, so I asked you.
I mean, a duplex and a townhome are synonymous except for the demising line for the property. So from a visual standpoint, they could look all just alike, or, you know, it's a design issue, not a building type issue.
I think I'd like to have the floor. Is that okay? You're done? Okay. I think the gentleman raised a really good point, because at the top of the subdivision, it's very equal on either side, and then changes, which is the more recent development, and the lots are selling and moving. We're being asked to waive a code in order to pull this one off. I don't think we should have to do that to everyone else that has a single family, and it is going out of character. You could say what was at the top, but the top matches, and those are identical. I mean, they're not identical, they each have their different profile, but then you get down the rest of the subdivision, you can look at the map. And they're single family, and that's what people are developing. So the duplex at the end doesn't match anything from the other side, that's totally developed out. So why not keep the character without having to change what's already been a successful development?
But you
Without
already
having
have,
to waive.
Go ahead.
you already
One
have,
point I need to make is that even if the commission were to approve this subdivision, they would have to obtain a variance from the Board of Zoning Adjustment to construct a duplex on this property, because it does not meet the minimum size requirement for a duplex. Minimum size for a duplex is 8,000 square feet. For the lot, this is only 56 something.
the character the same. Because getting a variance means there's some kind of hardship. I don't think there's a hardship if we go by letter of the law and why you apply for a variance. And you keeping a character that doesn't exist, you're creating something that doesn't exist at that end, so.
I was asked by a planning commission member earlier this week to maybe open my mouth and step in when I see some legal questions coming up. We have been sued several times in the last year on various decisions. And I'm not arguing with you, Ms. Rich, and I've never tried to tell the planning commission how to vote, and if I do, that's not my intent. But when you look at this application, it's R2. The duplexes are allowed by right. So you have to look at it strictly from a subdivision regulation viewpoint. And I keep hearing at the other end or at the top of the subdivision, but it looks to me like if you look to the right of this application, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots down, you have 25 or 30-foot lots in 4 townhomes, which you would, zero lot line type townhomes. So, look at the entire street, not just this end of Sussex. You have to, when you look at the compatibility of the neighborhood, you have to look at the whole street and the whole neighborhood to see what's there. And is this use or this lot size, not the use, the lot size, because the use is allowed by right, is the lot size compatible with the remainder of the subdivision? Thank you.
And all we're being asked to do is,
Clarification on the waiver?
Pardon?
What we're being asked to waive, which would be,
VD2 size requirement.
The width, depth ratio, is that what it is?
so
Which we do every meeting.
And so all we're being asked to do is give the subdivision approval.
Yeah, it's already zoned R2.
Right, so we have a hard time denying subdivision approvals unless there's some major reason.
Correct.
And I would think on all those other 25-foot wide lots, that waiver of BD2's already been granted, or was it not in effect at that time?
It was not in effect.
But I mean, again, it's all,
Yeah, it was not in effect when this was originally developed. And, let's see, if you look at, as Mr. Anderson was saying, these right here, these lots are wider so that there is a side yard. The interior lots there are 25 feet. I'm not arguing for or against the application. I'm just addressing some of the issues that have been pointed out.
I mean, I'm not trying to do a what if, but if they assemble the next lot over, and all of a sudden they combined all those, and they came before us and asked for the 5 or 6 plex, which is just like it 200 feet down the road, are we gonna say, no, you can't do that, cause those don't exist on the west end, but they exist on the east end? So that's where my kinda issue is, trying to separate compatibility.
They could assemble that next lot and do exactly what they did at that 4 or 5 plex, 4 or 5 lots down, and build those patio, zero lot line type things.
But we're gonna say, no, you can't do that, cause those don't exist on this end of the street, they exist on that end of the street. That's kinda,
If we approve the subdivision today, will the neighbors who are opposed to this have the ability to go before the zone of, variance board and appeal their case with them?
No, any appeal of a subdivision decision is to circuit court.
You said that he had to go,
No, I said that for them to build a duplex on the lot, due to the lot size being below 8,000 feet, they would have to go to the Board of Adjustment.
and then the neighbors would get,
The neighbors would, within 300 feet, would get a notice of that application.
so right now, just subdividing this, it would still have to be detached, and like the rest of the character, even though they're moving the lot larger.
Given the lot size, each lot would have to have a single-family dwelling. And they would have to conform with the zero lot line setback on one side and the standard setback as illustrated on the other. This development was also done before the PUD regulations were adopted, which is why it's kind of where it is.
And if they weren't subdividing it, they could come in and build a duplex by right because they exceed the 8,000 square feet.
No.
Too small.
They could not.
No.
Okay, I'm call for the question.
Did
Is
we
there a
have,
motion?
didn't have a motion?
Move to approve the subdivision based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any further deliberation? Those for? Against?
Opposed?
Duly noted. Passes. Item number 4, 5487 and 5509 Gibson Road, tentatively recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Against? Item number 5, 1485 Satchel Page Drive, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any deliberation? All in favor? Opposes? Motion passes. Item number 6, 1753 Spring Hill Avenue, tentatively recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Can I make an amendment to the motion? But I need your help with this. Talking about the pavers and the based on engineers and Zaxby's approval.
You could add as a condition that, what do you call it?
The 6,
Yeah, but what's the word? Permeable, excuse me, permeable pavers be utilized on the 6 parking spaces fronting Spring Hill Avenue unless denied by the city engineering department? Or should it be their own engineer, George? And would y'all look?
I don't think we would have any reason.
Okay, just their, unless their engineer determines it's not feasible for their stormwater drainage calculations, or the franchisor does not give its consent. I hope that makes sense.
As Doug said, so that's my motion.
Well, and I would like to also add, and I don't know how to word this, but the the applicant said he was agreeable to adding a pedestrian connection between the sidewalk and the restaurant there.
Can she repeat that?
Motion accordingly?
I'm not real
We
clear on
couldn't
this.
hear what she said.
Couldn't hear what she was saying about the
Adding the
sidewalk.
condition of the pedestrian sidewalk from the Spring Hill Avenue sidewalk to the building,
Okay.
or to the
Yeah,
parking.
so the permeable
No, from
pavers will
either
be
street.
conditioned upon the franchise being
either
able to
street.
get that approved, and then adding in the sidewalk connection
From both streets.
from both streets.
Either.
Okay.
No, should be-
Amend my motion to reflect those changes.
They've been
It should be really either street, because given the drive-through lane around the front of the building, it's not really safe to do a ped crossing across that drive-through.
Whatever's the safe.
Are we going to have a site revision to detail all this?
To
Okay.
muddy the waters a bit more, I would also like to have the commission consider a 3-foot continuous evergreen screen hedge on the 6 parking spots, if we're gonna allow them on Spring Hill Avenue.
Of what?
I didn't hear that.
An evergreen shrub hedge on the edge of those 6 parking spots, if we're gonna, so that it's just not the front of cars fronting Spring Hill Avenue. There's a buffer there. Because I think the original intent when we made the change in the last application was to, because of the new map for Mobile, was to get those parking spaces off Spring Hill Avenue. So if we're gonna keep
But
them,
out of curiosity, this is 6 parking spaces in front of a building next to buildings with more than 6 parking spaces in front of them. The map of, it's not a sea of parking. I think the intent for pulling the buildings closer to the street is to get rid of huge parking lots, like at a market or something. In this instance, we don't have this case, and so between permeable pavers, if you have permeable pavers, and then you're gonna add the hedges, at some point, we're overreaching our bounds.
Yeah, I agree. All this stuff should be addressed on the staff report.
Well, I also think, though, that if you look at this area and you look at Walgreens at that corner, there is some greenery, and there's a small fence that buffers Spring Hill to the parking lot. So I don't think that that's out of question, asking for that green buffer. And it's really not till you hit Catherine on Spring Hill that you really start seeing that business parking right at the street. I think this part of Spring Hill still has a lot of green buffering that I think as part of the Mapamobile in this traditional corridor, we do want to try and preserve. I might have misinterpreted the site plan because I thought it showed that there was gonna be a green buffer between the parking and the Spring Hill. Cause I thought there was a sidewalk and then there was some green.
Yeah, there's probably a 20 to 25 foot green buffer.
Right.
And I think all of their site plans reflect landscaping.
They're adding 500 square foot of landscaping.
Could you guys, I'm sorry.
I would like to speak about the landscaping. The landscaping, if it's built as we design, there's gonna be a lot more landscaping that's gonna be there after we build than was there today. There's gonna be more shrubs, there is greenery, there is shrubs, there are trees being added, there are flowers. Now, we do not propose an evergreen fence to entirely block our business there. I mean, that would impede our business even further. So we're adding additional space there than what is currently there now. So we are improving the area. We are adding additional landscaping. We are not encroaching on those trees any more than what's already there. I feel like as along Spring, and the pavers, we can look at that, and I personally think it would be fine. I mean, the building is gonna be brick. We've had to go through an approval process with the property owner. They have had a say in what our building is gonna look like, and they want to be a brick building, look similar to what's in the area. We both agreed on that. Putting those pavers on the front might go well with that. Again, we'll look at it, and I'm fine with it if the franchisor signs off on it and my engineer doesn't have any engineering problems with it. Same with a crosswalk. Wherever it's safe, put in a crosswalk, I'm fine with that. Yeah, we wouldn't want to put one maybe that directs people where a lot of traffic is going to be. But I feel like we've done about all we can do along Spring Hill. I feel like we've done more. We're doing more than what's there now. We're improving the area. We are increasing the beautification of the area.
Just to clarify, I'm not proposing an evergreen fence. It's a 3-foot evergreen shrub hedge, which is required on many new commercial developments all over the city. So it's just to block the cars, it's not to block your sign or your door.
And I don't know, we don't have a landscape plan in here.
I have a landscape plan in front of me. And the landscape plan does show that there will be a combination of azalea autumn and pink and white muhly grass that will somewhat screen the parking that's proposed along Spring Hill Avenue. It will not screen it all, but it will provide visual breakup of the parking area. And then they're also providing the same type of plant materials intermittently along Mobile Infirmary Boulevard. So it will not be a continuous shrub or visual buffer, but it will provide breakage to the overall perception of full parking.
All right, we have a motion that's been amended.
To include, the motion, the motion includes amending for the pavers and amending for the sidewalk at appropriate locations. That's the motion.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Is there any further deliberations? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? Passes. number 7 was withdrawn. Item number 8 is recommended for approval. Premier capital funding, is there a motion?
Move to approve based on staff recommendations.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Are we ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Item number 9, 414 and 430 Schillinger Road. Okay, that's recommended for holdover. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded to hold over to September 15th. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Item number 10, 7261 and 7311 Airport Boulevard, Molinex Ford subdivision, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any deliberation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 11, it's recommended for holdover to the September 15th meeting. That's the Layton Place subdivision. I'll make the motion that it be held over to September 15th.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. And lastly, item 12, 1204 Hillcrest Road, recommended for approval. Is there a motion?
Move to approve, subject to staff recommendation.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any deliberation? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposes? Pass. Also, we need an approval for the minutes. Yes, sir. If any.
Not minutes, but under other business, you do have the deadline schedule to approve.
Okay.
And I believe everybody has a copy.
Move to approve the schedule calendar.
Properly moved and seconded for the submission deadline schedule. Are we ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Properly moved and passed for the deadline. Is there any other business? Meeting adjourned.